All right, let's get you squared away for the ASVAB. Your mission today is to get a rock-solid understanding of cell biology. Now, this isn't just random trivia. This is critical intel you're going to need for the general science section of the test. So let's dive in.
Here's our mission itinerary. First, we'll establish exactly why this stuff matters. Then, we'll do a full recon of our main base of operations, the animal cell. After that, we'll check out some specialized fortified positions, plant cells. Then it's on to the action, critical maneuvers in cell division. And finally, we'll confirm our intel with some real-world practice.
So why are we focusing so hard on cell biology? Well, because the general science test on the ASVAB covers a lot of ground, and biology is a huge piece of that puzzle. Getting a grip on how cells work, that's not just bonus points, it's foundational knowledge that you can bet is going to show up.
Okay, to make all this information really stick, we're going to use an analogy. I want you to think of a typical animal cell as a military forward operating base, or FOB. It's this self-contained unit, right? And inside, it has all these specialized structures. They're called organelles. And each one has a very specific, very important job to do.
First things first, every single base needs security. And for our cell, that's the cell membrane. This is your perimeter security. It's basically the checkpoint that controls everything going in and out. It's semi-permeable, which is just a fancy way of saying it's selective. It lets the good stuff in, like water and oxygen, and keeps the bad stuff out.
Now, right in the center of our base, we have the Command HQ. That's the nucleus. This is where all the top-secret, mission-critical information is stored. And that's the DNA. Think of the DNA as the complete set of blueprints and standing orders for everything the cell has to do, from building new parts to making copies of itself.
A base is useless without power, right? Well, meet the mitochondria. These are the power plants for our entire operation. They take in fuel, like sugars and oxygen, and they convert it into usable energy. This energy is what keeps every single part of the base up and running, 24/7. No power, no mission.
So if the nucleus is the HQ giving the orders, who's actually doing the work? That would be the ribosomes. Think of ribosomes as the on-base factories. They are constantly at work, building all the proteins the cell needs to grow, to repair itself, and just to keep the whole operation in tip-top shape.
All right, let's do a quick intel check. The cell membrane, that's your perimeter security. The nucleus is Command HQ. The mitochondria, that's your power plant. And the ribosomes are the factories. If you can lock in these analogies, you'll be able to remember what each part does no problem.
Okay, let's shift gears and look at plant cells. Now, these aren't just standard FOBs. I want you to think of them more like a heavily fortified, totally self-sufficient base. They have a couple of really key upgrades that our animal cells just don't have.
So what makes a plant cell so different? Two major things. First, defense. On the outside of their membrane, they have a super rigid cell wall. It's like building reinforced concrete walls around your base. It gives them way more structure and protection. And second, power. Plant cells make their own energy from sunlight through a process called photosynthesis. They're basically running on solar power, making them incredibly self-reliant.
Okay, let's get into the action. How do these bases multiply? How do they create specialized units? Well, it all happens through two different but equally critical processes, mitosis and meiosis. And let me tell you, you have to know the difference between these two for the ASVAB.
First up, we've got mitosis. The easiest way to think about this is cloning. This is the process your body uses to make exact copies of its cells. So, whenever you need to grow or heal from an injury, your body uses mitosis to create two perfect copies from one original cell. It's all about growth and repair.
So, how exactly does one base become two identical ones? Well, it happens in a few careful steps. The cell starts by making a perfect copy of all its DNA. Then everything lines up, separates, and finally, the cell splits right down the middle. The most important thing to remember here is the end result. One parent cell becomes two completely identical daughter cells.
Now, meiosis, this is a totally different kind of mission. This isn't about cloning your standard base. This is about creating highly specialized units for one unique purpose, reproduction. These are your special ops cells. We're talking about sperm and eggs, which are also called gametes.
This chart right here breaks down the key differences you need to know. Mitosis is for making more body cells. Meiosis is only for making sex cells. Mitosis has just one division, and it gives you two identical cells with a full set of chromosomes.
But meiosis, it goes through 2 divisions, and what you get at the end is 4 genetically unique cells, each with only half the number of chromosomes. Lock that difference in your mind. It's a big one.
All right, Intel brief is complete. Now it's time to see how you use it in the field. Let's run through a practice question so you can see exactly how this stuff might pop up on the general science section.
All right, here's your question. What is true of meiosis? Take a look at your options, A, B, C, and D. Think back to what we just covered about those special ops cells and see if you can pick out the correct answer.
And the correct answer is B. Meiosis is the special process used to generate sex cells. Let's do a quick debrief on the wrong answers. A is wrong because meiosis has 2 divisions, not 1. C is wrong because you get 4 unique haploid cells, not 2 diploid ones. And D is definitely wrong because the whole point of meiosis is to create genetic variety, so the cells are distinct, not identical.
You know, we've been using all these military analogies, but at the end of the day, it's so important to remember that the cell is the basic unit of all life. Really getting a handle on this stuff isn't just about passing a test. It's about understanding the very foundation of how life works.
And that brings us to one last thought I want you to carry with you. All these tiny, microscopic bases doing these incredibly complex maneuvers. That's what builds and maintains the entire human body. So think about that. How does this fundamental level of organization scale up to create the very systems that you, one day, will be trained to protect? Good work today. Mission accomplished.